If you're not familiar with the game Rogue, well, you should be. It's a pretty famous game, spawning an entire genre of games like it. It was originally a free public domain game developed for Unix-based mainframe systems, mostly played on college campuses back in the early 80s. You are traversing a dungeon, going deeper through the randomly generated levels, battling monsters, to retrieve the Amulet of Yendor and bring it back out through the dungeon to the surface. This game was originally developed for computers that were text-based, so the graphics in Rogue are all ASCII or other fixed character sets. But that didn't matter, because the gameplay was solid and very in-depth for the time. It was a popular game, which was soon sold commercially for most all major home computers of the time. And in 1985, an enhanced Macintosh version was released, which featured actual graphics instead of the text characters that it was known for. This was an interesting version that was created by some of the original developers. Although an official version of Rogue existed for Mac, I think the Mac crowd of the time were much more familiar with a shareware game called The Dungeon of Doom. It was a high-quality roguelike, created by John Raymonds, and released around the same time as Rogue was for Mac. It took most of the elements that made up the Rogue experience, expanded it a bit, and made it much more friendly to play, as the whole game can be played with the mouse or with keyboard commands, or a combination of both. Everything is laid out in a way that it's very easy to understand. It's a comfortable game to play for extended periods, which it does require. It has great artwork and memorable sound effects, and definitely a commercial quality game. In fact, in my opinion, the Dungeon of Doom plays better than the official version of Rogue for Mac. Since Dungeon of Doom was distributed as shareware, it was readily available all over newsgroups and FTP sites back then. I'm guessing that it did well for John, because there were a few versions released which had upgraded the graphics and added features. I think I've tracked most of them down, but I am still missing the original release. If anyone has that, please let me know. The version I played as a kid was 4.0, but today we're going to be looking at version 5.4. This version is the same as 4.0, except it was re-released as a non-limited demo for a game called The Dungeon Revealed. The Dungeon Revealed was essentially an updated version of The Dungeon of Doom. It was a commercial release that had some additional features, including digitized sound effects, bosses or gatekeepers, and even more graphical improvements. So if you're new to this game, The Dungeon Revealed is what I would recommend you start with. With the updated sound effects and graphics, this one seems to be more polished, and I think someone new to this game would like this one better. The Dungeon Revealed got its name from the fact that you could order the source code to this game, revealing the way the game was programmed and how it works. Unfortunately, even to this day, I don't think a copy of the source code is surfaced, but if that ever changes, I'll post about it in the comments of this video. Anyways, we're looking at the Dungeon of Doom today instead of the Dungeon Revealed, because the Dungeon of Doom was much more well known in those days. So let's get into it. The objective of this game is just like with Rogue, to survive the randomly generated levels and retrieve a special item, then backtrack through the levels and make it back out alive. Instead of 26 levels like in Rogue, this game has 40 levels. And instead of retrieving the Amulet of Yendor, you've got to find the Orb of Karnos. When you start a new game, you're able to select the class you want to play as. The stats for each class differ in how they're balanced, and each class has a unique ability to guess the magical properties of a different item. Some classes can guess if an item is +1 or +2, and even weaker than normal items like -1 and -2. And some classes can guess what an item is after you pick it up. Items like scrolls, wands, potions, and rings are unknown when you first pick them up. You don't know what effect they're going to have when you use them. After you use them, you learn what they are or what they do from then on. There are some really bad items, like the blindness potion, which makes you go temporarily blind, the slowness ring, which slows you during combat, and the worst in my opinion is the Amnesia Scroll, which makes you forget the identity of all the items you've learned. The Knight class has an enhanced ability to guess the properties of armor. The Fighter class guesses the property of weapons. The sage has a better chance of guessing the identity of scrolls. The wizard has a better chance of guessing the identity of wands. The alchemist guesses the effect that potions will have on you. The jeweler guesses what rings will do when you put them on. And finally, we've got Jones. Jones doesn't know enough about this kind of stuff to make a guess at any items, but he's trained well and starts with the most amount of attribute points and has the most balanced stats of all classes. We haven't even talked about the stats yet, and these look like they're straight out of Dungeons and Dragons. The maximum these can be is 25 each. Strength is the most important of these stats, as it affects both the power of your weapons as well as the number of items you can carry. You can increase your strength by finding and using a muscle potion. Later on in the game, you'll run across some enemies who can hurt you in a way to take away your strength points, but using a strength potion will restore these. The intelligence stat affects your ability to successfully use scrolls. Sometimes when you read them, it'll just fail and be a complete waste. You've got to find the intelligence scroll to boost this stat. Wisdom affects your ability to use wands. With more wisdom, you'll get fewer misses. Wands are very helpful in the game to attack enemies from a distance. To boost this, you'll need to read a wisdom scroll. Dexterity affects your ability to throw items. Items you throw in this game aren't really all that great, so I don't usually worry too much about picking them up. The coolest throwable in this game is a Macintosh. It's rare to find one of those. To boost dexterity, you'd use a dexterity potion. Constitution, aka the digestion stat. This affects how fast you lose food points. You must eat in this game to stay alive, so being able to stay full longer is definitely something you'll need. Boost this one with a Constitution potion. Charisma. When you have high charisma, the monsters are not always hostile. Sometimes they won't even attack you. This is boosted with a charisma potion. Your maximum hit points are shown here, which is how much damage you can take total. You earn these as your experience level rises. You gain experience levels by killing monsters, and there's a ton of grinding you gotta do to be able to stand a chance in this game. Your experience level shouldn't ever be lower than your dungeon level. If it is, you need to go back up and kill more monsters before you continue. There's a ring in this game called the Monster Ring, and a good strategy is to find this ring early on, so you can bring it back to the start of the game, wear it, and you'll be bombarded with easily killed monsters. Keep doing this and make your way back through the dungeons to level up quicker than normal. Honestly, I don't even know if you can do it without the Monster Ring, as oftentimes you'll end up starving to death before you get enough experience to make it through the last levels. The enemies get really powerful and are able to mess you up quick. This game usually takes people around 24 hours or more to complete. With all the bad guys slaying and dying that you have to go through with this game, it gets insane. And I've never done it without using the cheat program, the Dungeon Winner. This program allows you to boost your stats. I used it to give myself more HP for this video, because I don't have 24 hours to kill bad guys this week. So as you get deeper into the dungeon, the levels start to get more maze-like, which means a lot of wandering around, exploring, and running into lots of really powerful enemies. At this point in the game, if you're playing legit, you'd better have some serious stats built up. When you get to level 40, this one is just a complete 100% maze. If you don't have a magic mapping scroll here, I hope you've got some time. You've got to get to the middle of the maze and find the orb. Thankfully, there are no bad guys on this level, and if you've got a digging wand, it really helps here to just break the walls to get through. In the middle of the level, there's the Orb of Karnos. But once you grab it, you'll have to use an identify scroll on it to make sure it's really the orb. There are two orbs, and one of them is just a plastic ball. The one I found was a plastic ball. I can't imagine how frustrating it would be to get all the way to level 40, only to grab the plastic ball and make it all the way back with it. You need the actual orb to win. So after roaming around for a long time, I stumbled across some plate armor +4, some of the best in the game. When I picked it up, I noticed that I also picked up the real Orb of Karnos, so it was hidden behind the armor. Sneaky. So let's get out of here. On the way back, you'll be visited by the Dark Wizard, who is very upset with you for taking the orb. This is the toughest guy in the game, and he has all the same abilities as you, so it's not easy to take him out. It took me a few encounters with him before I was able to take him out. He just likes to teleport away when he gets too damaged. He came at me when I was in a big battle with a bunch of monsters, each waiting their turn to fight me. When it was his turn, I just zapped him a bunch and he died, leaving behind a giant stack of gems. Gems are only good for points. You want to escape with as many as you can find for bonus points. It was a weird experience going back up the levels to the surface. It really put into perspective just how much stronger I was after fighting through all those difficult levels. In the beginning, these guys were killing me left and right, but now it was like nothing to take them out. I threw on a monster ring when I got back to level 1, just to beat the guys up for a little bit. But overall, getting back out is not nearly as difficult. And we escaped with the orb. Nice. So to play this game on a modern Mac or PC, I'd recommend using the Mini VMac emulator, with the speed set at 1x. If it's any faster than that, you'll probably have issues with the sound. As for an OS, System 6 runs this game the best. The Dungeon of Doom doesn't work on System 7.5 or newer, but the Dungeon Revealed works on most classic Mac operating systems, including OS 9. And that's pretty much all I have to say about this game. It's amazing, and even coming back to it today, I say it holds up very well. I feel like I've said a lot about this game, but barely even scratched the surface of all the different items and enemies in this game. But I've given you all that you need to know to get started. There's a lot to uncover for yourself, and much of this game was purposefully undocumented in-game for that reason. It's just a really fun game to run around, explore, experiment, die a lot. A real involved game with lots of gameplay and replayability. If you've got a Mac Plus or SE, this game was built for those, and I encourage you to give this game a try. If you enjoyed this video, remember to leave a like on it, and subscribe if you haven't already. I do this classic Mac games series every few weeks or so, with reviews, walkthroughs, overviews of vintage Mac games, and I've got a lot of other videos that might interest you on my channel. I really enjoy making these videos, and I couldn't do it without you watching, commenting, or supporting this channel on Patreon. I really do appreciate it. I've got a new video in the works already, so I'll see you soon. Goodbye.